In the morning, the house was warm from the stove, but when Laura looked out of the window, she saw the ground was covered with soft, thick snow. Pa came in, shaking the soft snow from his shoulders and stamping it from his boots. "It's a sugar snow," he said. "Why is it a sugar snow, Pa?" Laura asked him, but he didn't have time to explain now. He must hurry away. He was going to Grandpa's.
Hey folks, I'm Dennis Leppell, and we've come a long way since Pa Angles ran out of the house to help Grandpa with that sugar snow. What they were doing was making maple syrup. That's what we're doing today. And really, the process hasn't changed. We drill a hole into the tree. We take a tap, also called a spile. You pound it in the tree, and when the temperatures are right, that being above freezing during the daytime and below freezing at night, the maple tree is going to produce sap, which you're then going to boil down into syrup. Now, there's a few different styles of taps that people use. Some are designed to hang sacks off the edge of the tree. Some use a traditional style with a hook that hangs a bucket on it. Others set their system up on a vacuum system, and they have tubes strewn all throughout the woods, and they pull thousands of gallons of sap at a time. Myself, I'm using these plastic drop tube styles. I pick them up off of Amazon. You get about 10 of them for about $20, $25. And a 5/16 inch bit. Drill in at a slight upwards angle. Then you insert the tap into the hole, tap it in. You'll hear the sound of the tapping change just a little bit as this tap gets seated. That's when you know you've put it in just enough. You only want to drill in about 1.5 inches deep. Any further than that, you're going to be going too deep into the tree. You might harm the tree, and you're not going to get any more syrup out of it. Now, if you got sugar maples, on average, you're going to need about 45 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. I've got silver maples. That means I'm going to need about 50 to 60 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. Really, it comes down to the sugar content that's in the sap. Usually, your season is going to last you about 4 to 6 weeks, so plan accordingly. Look at your long-term forecast and figure out when the best window is to tap if you want to do this yourself.
Okay, so now we're just collecting all the sap that we have gotten. So let's pour it into the buckets.
Wait, Paige, why do we have to collect sap right now?
Because we don't want it to sit out into the sun too long, so we collect it so that way, 1, we can see how much we get a day, and 2, so it keeps, it doesn't overheat.
Oh.
What has been your favorite part about making our own syrup this year?
My favorite part is about that we all get to have some family time together, and we get to have time to collect the syrup and make some.
The sap?
Yeah.
It's a really fun spring project now that winter's over.
And spring is just starting, so we have lots more things.
This year we have 12 trees with 20 taps. Not all of them are good producers, like this one. It's not very good. We like to use these buckets right here. We got them from a bakery because it's really important that all your storage buckets and collecting buckets are food safe.
Sometimes when you collect sap, you might see that there's bugs inside. You don't need to worry because you can clean it out very easily.
So we're not making sap for a lot of people. So we're just making it for ourselves and some family and friends. So on our best days, we only collect 10 to 15 gallons of sap.
And when we're out of storage, that's when we cook.
Now, after you've collected enough sap to actually make it into syrup, you're going to need a method to boil off all that excess water. That's what's called an evaporator. Some people might do it on the kitchen stove if they got a very small amount to do. I've done a turkey fryer in the past. That worked fine. You go through a lot of propane though. There's even neat systems out there where you can convert a 55-gallon barrel into a stove to boil off all the excess water. This year I went with a cinder block arch, which is another common method to make your own syrup in your own backyard. And it's just exactly what it sounds like. It's a cook stove made out of cinder blocks. I got some restaurant pans right here, trying to replicate the gradient system that a lot of the bigger guys will do, where my back is going to be my finished pan and I'm pouring raw sap in the front, and I keep ladling it forward as my pans boil down. So at the end, all my finished product's gonna be right in this back pan. The biggest thing about making your syrup is speed, being able to boil it off as fast as you can, and that means surface area. You can boil off approximately 1.5 gallons of water per square foot. So with this rig right here, I can get about 10 gallons an hour boiled off. You know, the faster you can boil it off, the lighter color your syrup is going to be, the more delicate the flavor is going to be. And really, when you got a lot of sap, you don't necessarily want to be out until 2 o'clock in the morning, which I've done. Another thing that I've done with my cinder block arch to emulate what the more professional setups do is put in what's called an arch. Now, that means that I'm not trying to build a fire underneath all 4 of my pans. My fire is right in this area. What I've done is taken a piece of sheet metal, ramped it up here, and then directly underneath my back 2 pans. And then top that off with a couple of paver stones to protect the metal a little bit. That's going to force the heat up and directly underneath those pans. It's probably only 1.5 inches below the pans, and then out the smokestack. Now, when you're using wood to boil off your sap, the smoke from the wood has to go somewhere. That's where the smokestack comes into play. Now, you want your stack to be at least twice as long as your evaporator length is. That's going to get a really good air draw to pull all that heat to the back of the pan and up and out. The added benefit of that is it's going to make sure that none of the smoke seeps out through any of the cracks and crevices that you might have, you know, from around the pans or between the blocks, which can ultimately affect the taste of the syrup when you're all done with it. You go through a lot of firewood when you're making maple syrup. Now, the most efficient way to cut your wood for this is to make sure that it's no thicker than your wrist. It's going to ignite very quickly, burn very fast, very hot. You want fire, not coals. So you want to get this thing torching pretty dang good. However, if your smokestack starts glowing, maybe back it off just a little bit. Now again, to have the lightest color, best tasting syrup, speed is definitely the name of the game. To get the fastest evaporation rate, you're gonna wanna run your pans as shallow as you're comfortable with. I try to run mine about 1 inch deep. It takes a lot of attention though. Unfortunately, I was busy filming and not paying attention to the pans. They did overboil a little bit. They'll foam up a little bit when they really get going. So I got a bit of scorching on the side here. Now, easy way to combat that foaming is going to happen no matter what. Either just a little bit of butter right on the edge of the pan will knock that down. I really like this liquid defoamer. A couple drops in each pan will take care of the foaming for pretty much the entire boil. You can get it at Fleet Farm. It's available on Amazon. Just costs a couple bucks. This bottle right here probably lasts me about 10 years. When you run out of sap and you're near the end of your boil, eventually you have to start transferring what you have left in these pans back to your finishing pan. So, you know, use a pair of gloves. I let the fire die down so I don't have flames shooting out of here. And then I pick the pan up, pour it off onto the next one, wait till that one goes down, continue to ladle as you need, and keep on moving forward until I've got nothing but my finishing pan left. And then I use my digital thermometer here, check the temperature, and when it hits about 216 degrees, I pour that pan off to my finishing pan here. I'll take this into the house and I'll finish it on the stove where I've got better control of the temperature. Now, one thing you don't want to do is put your pans back into your cinder block arch and have nothing in them. You're just going to burn your pans, scorch them, warp them, and you're either going to have to do a lot of scrubbing or you're going to have to replace them the next time you boil. So keep a bucket of water. As soon as you put that pan back in, you at least want to fill it at least halfway full and check it periodically while you still got some heat still in your evaporator. All right, so as you can see, I've brought my near syrup into the house to finish on the stove. Now it's at 216 degrees right now, and I'm filtering it. The reason why I'm filtering it is because at 190 degrees, it starts forming potassium nitrate, which precipitates out of the sap It's a sediment that you really don't want in your finished product. So I have here what's called an Orlon filter. It's made out of felt with 2 pre-filters in it set up on a jelly strainer stand over a pot here. And I'm just ladling it in here and catching all that sediment, after which I'll put this back on the stove and finish boiling it to the correct final temperature and density. Now it's time to make your near syrup into actual syrup, and that means bringing it back to a boil and bringing it up to 7.5 degrees above the boiling point of water. Now that temperature, that actual temperature can change daily or even hourly, and is based off of your elevation as well as the barometric pressure. Now, I use saptapapps.com, and it gives me instantaneous number of what my target point should be. For me today is 218.78 degrees Fahrenheit, which we're just a little bit above. Now to verify that though, we use a hydrometer. So I fill up my hydrometer cup. This measures the actual density of the liquid itself. When it floats at the red line, that's when you have syrup. Looks like we're there, kiddo. So now that we've made it into actual syrup, we're going to filter it one more time and then we're going to bottle it. It's really good to do this when it's hot. It runs through the filter a lot faster. Now we're going to heat it back up one last time. You want to get it up to about 180, 185 degrees, not over 190, because then you're going to start forming niter again, and it's time to bottle. You want to do this quickly so it doesn't have a chance to cool off. You want to get your cap on right away. Lay it on its side for a minute. That'll sterilize the cap, and it should be sealed, ready for storage. Now, properly sealed, this syrup can last up to 2 years. So I hope everybody's really enjoyed watching us muddle our way through making some maple syrup today. There's many different ways to do it. You know, our way is certainly not gospel. All that really matters is if you can get some sap, and if you can boil that sap, you're gonna make maple syrup. So if you got any questions about how to do it that we didn't answer here, there's plenty of online resources that are available. Your local extension agency may have some information, as well as mapletrader.com, as well as the Facebook group Maple Syrup Chat. Lots of helpful people on there answer any of your questions. So hey, on behalf of Paige Leppell, I'm Dennis Leppell, Midwest Outdoors. We'll be right back.